Have you ever said something that's been misunderstood? Or have you made assumptions? Well, I know I have. And I'm going to share some stories with you. I worked for a computer software company that would spend quite a bit of money to build a booth at these trade shows that I would attend. And the largest trade show happened to be in Las Vegas called Comdex. The event manager at my company picked a particular booth company to build the booth, and he wanted to show his appreciation to her by asking her what she liked to drink. And she said red wine. So he told her he was going to buy her the best bottle of red wine Caesar's Palace had to offer. And since I was her best friend, I was able to join as well. Well, we arrived at Caesar's Palace a little early and we ordered the house red wine while we waited for him. And when the owner of the booth company showed up, he said, "What are you girls drinking?" And we said, "Well, we're just drinking some red wine." And he said, "No, I told you the best bottle of red wine Caesar's Palace had to offer, and that's what I'm going to do." I told him, "We really appreciate the gesture, but I really only know the difference between rot gut and medium because what do I know?" And he said, "What do I know?" And I said, "Yeah, what do I know?" And he said, "What do I know?" And I said, "Yeah, what do I know?" And he goes, "What do I know?" And then it dawns on me, what do I know? Well, I told my company this story, and they had an award ceremony one time, and they showed me this plaque. So this is the plaque. I think you can see it, and oh, no, okay. So it's what do I know and what do I know? So you can see it's spelled both ways. So I thought that was pretty amusing, and then we had a pretty good laugh. Now, I would travel on business quite a bit, and whenever I bought a coach ticket, I could upgrade for free to first class, which was pretty great. I was sitting in first class next to this gentleman, and we both happened to order red wine. So after we got the wine and we're sipping it, he turns to me in his suit and he said, "How do you like the wine?" And I said, "Well, it's pretty good." And he said, "Yeah, it's really good." He goes, "Have you ever had Charles Shaw wine?" And I said, "No, I've never heard of it." But I made a mental note in my head. And when I got home, I asked my friend, who was really kind of a foodie and a wine connoisseur, and I asked her, I met this guy in first class on American Airlines, and he asked me if I knew about Charles Shaw wine. She said, "What do you mean, $2 Chuck?" And I said, "$2 Chuck? What's $2 Chuck?" Well, $2 Chuck happens to be Charles Shaw wine at Trader Joe's. Here I am thinking he's informing me of this great wine and he's telling me about $2 Chuck. Now, when I first moved to Palo Alto, I needed to open a bank account. So I went to Chase and I was introduced to the account manager, and he proceeded to ask my name to open the account. I said, "Barbara Gross." He starts looking up at the ceiling. He's looking down the hall. He's looking behind him. And I'm saying, "Something wrong?" And he said, "Well, I'm brand new at the bank, and I thought somebody might be playing a trick on me because the branch manager here is Barbara Gross." I said, "I'm not playing a trick on you." And I had to show him my license to prove that I was really Barbara Gross. Now, there was a restaurant in Palo Alto, a really nice Italian restaurant called El Fornaio. And I wanted to make a reservation. So I did it. They were very friendly. And when I showed up and gave them my name, They said, "You're not Barbara Gross." I said, "Yes, I am." They said, "Well, we know Barbara Gross is a member of the Chamber of Commerce in Palo Alto." And then I thought about it, and I was getting invites from the Chamber of Commerce to go to the meetings. I didn't even know why. I thought maybe I'd go to check it out, but I never did. Then some time went by, and I started getting these phone calls from my friends asking me if I changed my job. I said, "No, why are you asking?" He said, "Well, check out the San Jose Mercury News because there's a big article that says Barbara Gross is now the general manager of the Garden Court Hotel in Palo Alto." I said, "No, that's another Barbara Gross, but I'll tell you what, if you ever want to get a reservation at El Fornallo restaurant, just drop my name because that happened to be the restaurant at the hotel as well. If you're a shoo-in, you'll get right in." I also one day got a phone call from a medical office saying that I needed to come in to make an appointment with my doctor regarding my latest blood tests. Well, I hadn't had a blood test in a long time, so I said, "You've got the wrong Barbara Gross." I couldn't believe this. I thought maybe I should go to a meeting at the Chamber of Commerce just to meet her and start laughing about this. Because I know she probably got calls from me. I know at least in one instance, because I used to go to these single events and I met this one guy, I gave him my number. I never heard from him. And then I saw him at another event and he said, "I lost your number, but I called information. And when I called, a guy answered the phone." I said, "That wasn't me. That's another Barbara Gross." And come to find out, just on Delta Airlines alone, there's over 50 people that are Barbara Gross, if you can believe it. I never thought it was such a common name, but it is. Now, I still have a Boston accent, and one of my best friends is from the UK. She relocated to Palo Alto, and she'd have people from Scotland visiting her. And I remember going to a happy hour with her and this friend from Scotland. And it was hard enough understanding her and her understanding me. But with the noise of happy hour in the background, it was ridiculous. So we ended up coming up with this idea and we got napkins. And I'd write a question to her and show it to her, and she'd write the answer on her napkin. Well, it was only till later on in the evening that we realized that a lot of people around us who didn't know us thought we were deaf because we were writing on napkins. I would assume that as well. Now, I worked for this UK company, and they like to say they had an office in Silicon Valley. That office in Silicon Valley happened to be my apartment in Palo Alto. I once had to do a demonstration of my software for this man that lived in San Francisco, and I wasn't going to have somebody come over my house. So I asked him if I could go meet him at the lobby of the W Hotel. He said, "Sure, that sounds fine." So I dress up in my suit and I go and I meet him and I do the demonstration of my software, and he seems to really like it. And then he looked at his watch and he goes, "It's 5 o'clock. Why don't we go across the street to the Topless Bar?" Well, I couldn't believe what this man was saying to me. And I thought, what kind of vibe am I giving off? I quickly looked down to see if I was exposing myself. Was my shirt open or something? But no, it wasn't. And I thought to myself, I don't care how much this deal is. He's not going to talk to me like that. So I said to him, "Excuse me, but did you just ask me to go across the street to a topless bar?" And he just leaned back in the booth and he couldn't even catch his breath. And then all of a sudden he starts doing this belly laugh. He couldn't stop laughing. And then he said, "I didn't ask you to go across the street to the topless bar. I asked you if you want to go across the street to the tapas bar." Well, I'm from Boston. I never heard of tapas in my life. Come to find out, it's Spanish appetizers. Who knew? He said, oh, this is so funny. Can I call my wife? I said, go ahead. He calls his wife, and the three of us go across the street to the tapas bar. Now, I worked for a Russian company, and the first time I arrived in Moscow, they had a driver pick me up with a sign with the name of my company. I get in his car. He drove like an absolute maniac, but I got to the hotel. I check in, the company had prepaid for the hotel room, and I thought, I'll just go to the lobby bar and get a glass of red wine. So I proceed to go to the bar. I sit down. I point to red wine because a lot of people in Moscow, unless you've gone to college, you do not speak English. They had no reason to learn it. So they present me with a glass of red wine, and I proceed to give them my credit card. Yet, okay, I reach in my wallet. I give some American dollars. Yet, so my colleagues had given me some rubles. I had no idea how much what I had amounted to. I hold out my hand with the rubles that I had, and I don't know how much that was, but by their reaction, it looked like maybe I showed them of the value of 25 cents. So they said, yeah, they shooed me right out of there. I couldn't believe it because I've traveled all over the world, and you, nowhere did I need to, have any other currency other than my credit card and American dollars because they usually took it, but tip, not in Moscow. Now, I would go to Moscow quite a bit as I worked for this company for several years. And the same driver seemed to pick me up every single time. And he still drove like a maniac, but this time he picks me up and he's driving like a maniac and he gets me to the hotel. But before I get out, I say to him, Spasiba, because that means thank you. And I decided I was going to learn at least one word every year, in another language. I actually consider myself multilingual in French, Spanish, and Russian now because I know about 5 to 6 words. But that's a side point. So once I say spasiba to him, he turns to me and he starts talking to me in Russian. And I'm like, no, one word, one word. And he got it. He starts laughing. I start laughing. Now, I would go to these business meetings in Moscow quite a bit. And one year for the business meeting, they said, would you like to stay extra? Because we're going to have this big party after the business meeting. Well, I didn't have to think twice about it. My middle name is Party. I mean, sign me up. So it wasn't till weeks later, I actually saw the agenda. I couldn't believe it. This was the party. Zip-lining over a forest, hiking over a mountainous riverbed, climbing and rappelling off a mountain, and diving into a river. Look at me. Do I look like somebody that wants to do that? I signed up for a party. Then I look at the small print and it says things to bring, a light to wear on your head so you can find the outhouse, your own toilet paper because they don't have it in the outhouse. Well, I was committed. They already prepaid for the flight and everything. I had to go. So I go to Moscow, I land, and of all times for me not to get my bag doesn't show up. So now I'm wearing the same thing every day at the sales meeting. I'd be wearing black leggings, a baseball shirt, and I think, I guess you wondered what I'd be wearing today, because I would check with the airlines. They were looking, they couldn't find it. I was just hoping I would get the bag before we went on this adventure, but no. So to get there, we had to take a 2-hour plane ride from Moscow, then a 2-hour bus ride. Then we arrived at this campsite where there are these trucks that look like from World War II, or if you've ever seen the show MASH, those kind of old-fashioned trucks, and they load you in the back of the truck. So there were no steps to get in the back of the truck. So the guys had to just yank you in, and there was this piece of metal up top, so you better not smash your head in the metal. Well, I get pulled in the truck, and then I have to hold on to this pole while we're sitting on these benches. And the trucks are going, there is no road, we're just going up and down. That's why you had to hold on to the pole. And then all of a sudden, the fumes of carbon monoxide are coming into the back of the truck. And now this is another reason why you have to hold the pole, because you're going to nod off in there dying from the fumes. And as I'm looking down at the bottom of the truck, I see blood stains. So somebody must have nodded off and actually fell on the bottom of the truck. Well, we finally get there, and I was told that I'm going to be sharing this very small tent with my boss and another colleague. And we were given sleeping bags. And it was such close quarters that we're in there like sardines. I'm in the middle. And I'm lying in this little tent on the, in this sleeping bag on the ground. We couldn't even move. I mean, that's how small the tent was. It was so comfortable. I can't even explain how comfortable that was. So now it's time to zip line over the forest. I am terrified. The guides that are teaching us, they only speak Russian. And I'm thinking, sure, I'm going to zip line. I'm going to get stuck in the middle of this zip line. I can't understand a word they're telling me because they're talking in Russian. And, if I did it, I'd probably still be there. So I came up with this idea that I would be the photographer. And so they went along with that. But when it came time to hiking over this mountainous trail, I had to do it. So it happened to be 100 degrees, 100% humidity, and I'm wearing black leggings and a baseball shirt, and I had my purse. I didn't have any backpack. I had a purse. So I shoved my purse in somebody else's backpack, and I'm going up these trails. And if I ever saw water, I would dunk my head in the water. And at a certain period of time, the sneakers I had on, they weren't really meant for hiking. And the rubber started coming off the sole of the sneaker and flipping off. And just walking, I would kill myself. So this man said, I've got an idea. He got his pocket knife and he cut the rubber off the sneakers. So now it's just the sole of my shoe walking over the rocks, and I did it. I can't believe it. I did it. And oh my God, what an adventure. Well, let me tell you that it turned out that it was a good experience for bonding, actually. I would have never signed up for something like that if you had asked me in advance if I really knew. I mean, did this ever happen to you? Like something you signed up for that sounded so familiar to you, you didn't even have to ask a question? Like a party meant something totally different to somebody else? Well, I decided I was going to take the party with me, and I embraced it with joy and laughter. Now, once we were back in Moscow and I was back at the hotel to fly back, that happened to be the day my bag showed up in Moscow, just in time for me to take it back home with me. So I'd say what I've learned is just embrace different events with humor. Thank you very much.